Disclaimer, I am not sponsored by nor am I affiliated with any of the companies mentioned in this video. All opinions represented are mine and mine alone. They do not represent anyone besides myself. Your opinions may differ, that's okay. Try this stuff out for yourself in order to find out if it works for you. Hi everyone! Welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. If you've never been here before, my name is Krista and welcome to my little art corner on YouTube. Today, as you can see, we're going to be playing around with some Arteza, or Arteza, I'm not sure exactly how you're supposed to say it, watercolor colored pencils. I decided to get the 24 pack because I figured that was enough colors to be able to kind of play with and figure out how well they work. And as of filming this video, they are currently $17.98 on Amazon, and they are considered an Amazon's choice. I'm using some Stonehenge Aqua Hot Press paper, which came in the March 2019 sketch box. I've used this paper for a couple of projects now. I've kind of figured out how well it works and that I like it. And for some watercolor pencils, which I've been using a couple of different brands now, never used to, but now I am. Thanks, Sketchbox. I kind of have an idea of how they would work on this paper, so I want to use this because it's a familiar item for me. And also this little pad is 5x7, which is a perfect size for testing out something and doing some kind of rougher, smaller projects. And since I have contained myself pretty well for the past couple videos testing stuff out and not doing flowers, we're going to be doing flowers today. As I think I said before in some other videos, flowers are kind of a good, easy subject to be able to test different new materials with. That's partially why in art classes, when you are first learning new media, they give you either flowers or just a different kind of still life, like a normal still life, in order to kind of get used to the material and figure out how it works and get some of the fundamentals down. And I started by doing a sketch in a mechanical pencil, just normal graphite mechanical pencil. I didn't want to do the sketch with the actual watercolor pencils because I hadn't used them yet and I wasn't sure how well they actually blend out once they're set down on paper, for one, and for two, I kind of wanted to see how well it would cover up the graphite, like how opaque the watercolor colored pencils are, especially when water is added. So you can see with a lot of water, bunches and bunches and bunches of water, all the water, it gives you a really, really soft, loose effect, kind of what you would expect from normal watercolor. I started off really, really loose with a lot of the shapes and just really free, and I kind of tighten it up later as I go. Typically with this medium, it's a lot better to start lighter and then darken because it's really difficult to lighten it up without pulling in other materials. I do want to kind of point out, which this might have just been me, when I first opened the plastic packaging that the watercolor pencils were in, I was struck with like a really, really strong chemical smell mixed with a little bit of like plastic smell. The plastic smell was obviously the packaging, but the chemical smell was most likely the watercolor pencils. So if you have some kind of breathing issues or you just have a naturally strong aversion to chemical smells, I would either not buy these pencils or I would buy them, open them up, and let them set out for a little while just to air them out. Most of the colors I'm using are obviously a couple greens, I pull in a yellow, kind of a magenta color, and then a little bit of a burgundy. And I'm just layering them up slowly but surely, going between having them be wet and using them as a dry colored pencil material. If you dip the pencil directly into the water, you can get some pretty dark, deep lines, or at least what seems like dark, deep lines while they're wet, they do dry quite a bit lighter. And just like with a lot of things, especially with watercolor, they do dry significantly lighter typically. This was supposed to be a lilac, and I was just thinking of my great-grandmother because I believe lilacs were her favorite flower, and I kind of just was in the mood to kind of do that in a little bit of remembrance for her, because she's been gone for a while now, but it kind of ends up looking like the plants from the new Sims pack called Strangerville. If you don't know what I'm talking about, wait till this video's done and look it up. It's kind of a weird little sci-fi pack that they recently released for the Sims 4, and actually the trailer was released on my birthday, and I was super excited about it coming up because I've been playing The Sims since the first one came out, because I am getting old. But that was just a random tangent. Just like with anything, sometimes with art, when you keep going, it kind of evolves, and at least for me, I like to kind of roll with the punches and try to troubleshoot as I go. I feel like you learn more that way. Maybe it's just from watching too much Bob Ross as a kid on PBS. I think that with art, sometimes you just have to go with the journey, and there are no mistakes. Or at least that's the viewpoint I have to have, so I don't drive myself completely insane while I'm painting or drawing, because I can have a tendency to get like way too technical or too obsessed with something, and I have to step back. I've noticed as I'm getting a little bit older that that part of myself is kind of lightening up quite a bit, and I'm able to kind of just go with the flow with certain paintings and drawings, and especially when I'm trying new media, because it's not going to be perfect, because when you're using a new brand of something, you're never gonna be perfect the first time unless you're like super amazing all the time, which if you are most people, good for you. And like I said earlier, we're kind of just going back and forth between the pencils being dry and them being wet. I am intentionally using the red and the green over each other to help add some nice darker, deeper spots. I'm trying to do everything I can to not pull a bunch of black into this piece. I did notice that if the pencils set down dry, like if I put it down dry and then add just a tiny bit of water, it really doesn't dilute it at all. You do have to use a significant amount of water, or at least I did, in order to get it to kind of cooperate in the way that I wanted it to. Which a lot of the time it didn't cooperate the way I wanted it to, but that happens. It's just part of the journey. And the further I get into it, the more vibrant I tended to make the colors. I like using a lot of super saturated colors. I think part of that is because I'm pretty nearsighted. So sometimes for me to be able to see stuff, even with glasses, to see it well, it has to be kind of bright and have a good chunk of contrast for me to be able to see it well. The other factor of that is probably seeing too much like Rainbow Bright and Gem and the Holograms and stuff like that as a child. I'm pretty sure that deeply affected my psyche, and I wanted to use all the colors all the time. If you have a heroine who saves the entire world by adding color to everything, I think it's gonna affect how you see that. Although it only affects my art, I usually just wear all black. And as you can see, it is slowly looking less and less like a watercolor painting and more like a normal colored pencil drawing. I will say when I added the water, they did blend pretty well, but if you're just using them dry, they don't really blend very well on top of each other, which some watercolor pencils do and some don't. It's probably just all has to deal with what they're actually made of and the composition and binders and all that fun stuff. And the amount of layers and the thickness of those layers probably affects how well they layer upon each other as well. I pulled in the white pencil from the set to kind of see how well it pulled up. It pulls up a little bit, but not as much as you would expect it to. By the way, the rule is technically not to use white in watercolor. You're supposed to use the white of the paper. If you've seen other videos about this, I'm terrible about that. For some reason, it just does not compute in my brain. But as you'll find out later, I end up cheating more anyway, because I do end up pulling in other media to kind of sharpen this guy up a little bit more, because it was kind of getting a little blobby to me. Just like a big old color blob mixing into each other. And I'm trying to create definition with just the pencils dry, or by dipping it into water and using it wet, but it just wasn't quite working as well as I wanted it to. Which is not the media's fault, that's my fault for expecting something out of it when it's a watercolor pencil, and I don't want it to act like a watercolor pencil. And because of my heavy-handedness, I do end up losing a lot of that ethereal nature that watercolor has. But here is how I cheat. I end up bringing in the A72 finalizer pen set, which is from Arteza, or Arteza still, so at least for the most part it's within the same brand. I bought these a while ago because the tips were really tiny, and it looks like you could get super tiny lines with them, and it was a more affordable option because, as I said, it's a set of 72, and on Amazon right now there's a coupon so you can get them for an extra $3 off, but they are normally like $26.99. To me that was pretty affordable, because some of the paintings I normally do, especially the ones with eyes and some red veininess or arteries going on, I do like being able to get super duper tiny lines to get in there. So that's why I got it, and we'll be using them again in here. And although I do pull in a little bit of black with the Filiner in some spots, for the most part I end up using a deep blood red color for a good chunk of outlining, and a kind of olive green that's a darker color for a lot of the outlining too, and in certain spots I use one over the other in order to get a deeper part in there. I do think that it helped add that tiny bit more contrast and make everything look a little bit more defined. I will say that these pens can be kind of a pain, the liner pens, because the tips for certain ones will either fray, or while I was working on this piece, the tip of, I want to say it was the dark red one, it would like bend, so while I'm drawing and I'm not applying a lot of pressure to it, I could feel the tip like bend, so you could feel it go down, and that was kind of annoying, but it did. You can straighten it up, and it gave the piece the overall effect I wanted. Not gonna lie, these aren't like the favorite art materials I've ever used, watercolor pencils or marker wise. They are pretty affordable though, and honestly there are probably plenty of people who could make something way better with these materials than I can. So there's that. And we are kind of winding down. This piece is pretty much done, or pretty close to being done. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you liked it, please hit that like button. If you've used these products by Arteza or any other ones ever, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know how you made them work for you and your thoughts about how they work. I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I don't love them, I don't hate them, they're just kind of in the middle for me. if you want to see more videos like this where I'm trying out different kinds of art supplies or just playing around with art, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great day or night depending on when you're watching this. Bye! See you next time.